the great thinkers. Me.
No, Harold.
Too bad you're so...
You, not me.
No, you, sir, you, sir. Welcome very much to Conversation. It's a great privilege and honor and privilege to be able to introduce to the audience our guest. That's Norton Mezvinsky. He's currently the president of the International Council on Middle Eastern Studies. Is that got it right?
For Middle East Studies, that's correct.
And it's down in Washington.
That is correct.
A major institution that he's the head of and is working it out. We're going to be talking about that, and we've done many programs with him. He's a major scholar of Middle Eastern questions and others, and he's also a person that's very, very well acquainted with the larger questions of human concern now. Norton, so good to see you again.
Harold, it's nice to be here with you as well.
We've known each other for decades.
For a long time.
Yeah,
Harold. And
now tell me about this new institute, relatively new, that you're heading up down in Washington.
Well, the International Council for Middle East Studies, we've existed for 7 to 8 years, so we're relatively new. And it's not a membership organization. It's an organization made up of our directors. And our directors are, for the most part, academics. They're leading scholars. A majority of them are people who deal with the Middle East in one way or another. A couple of the others are scholars that deal with connected areas. And then we have a few politicos as well, political people, who are our directors. Our mission is educational. We plan programs. We are writing a few books. We have some of our people writing books. We also lecture, and that's what we do. And we do it in the United States. We have programs in the United States, and we have programs outside the United States. And our programs have dealt with a variety of topics that are all topics within the context of the Middle East. For example, we had a major conference in Seville, Spain last year with the University of Seville and with a major European grouping called the Three Cultures Foundation. It was a conference on Islam, and we're having a second conference with the same people on Islam. We're having it in Morocco in September, and we bring outstanding Islamic scholars, and they're talking about reforms within Islam. That's one example. We've had programs. We've had programs on Israel-Palestine. We had a program just a couple weeks ago with an outstanding spokesperson who is an ultra-Orthodox rabbi, and the topic was, has Zionism hijacked Judaism?
Wow.
So there's that kind of topic. And then we've had topic. Then we've
was that done down in Washington?
That was done in Washington.
Do you have conferences in Washington?
That's right. And we've had it in other places too.
Is it a regular thing of the Institute?
Well, yeah. If regular means do we have a set number of programs every year? The answer is no. We do it consistently. But the times vary. The times vary. So
and how does it determine what you're going to do? You have a scholarship in representing in the council itself.
Yeah,
maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Our directors meet. We have ideas come up. We decide what kind of program we would like to do, and then we collectively, and then we try to pick the best possible people to do those conferences. Sometimes we utilize our people. Sometimes we bring in others.
Which brings me up with Rolodex. And how many are on your Rolodex of our people, as you put it? And how large is the Rolodex or the address bars of people that you are in touch with?
As I said, we're made up of our directors. And we only have 17 to 18 directors.
17
but
to
18,
18,
when we have programs, we of course then try to get as big an audience as possible. And our whole approach is, rather than be concerned with members, we're concerned with substance and quality. And so we try to pick substantive people, which I think we have,
Yeah, right.
to be our directors,
Yeah.
and then we try to plan those kinds of programs.
Are those people active in academia? Some of them?
They are.
Are they
most of
Washington bound or what?
No, most of them are academics.
Yeah.
A few are politicos.
Uh-huh.
Some of them are. We have a number in Washington.
Yeah.
But we have people who are in other places. One of our directors is Benjamin Beit al-Achmi, is a leading professor of psychology of religion at Haifa University in Israel. Rada Karmi is a person who's a leading academic, and she lives in London. She's been one of the major Palestinian advocates for 35 years. We have one woman who has just retired, as she for over 20 years was a professor of theology in Spain, and she's one of the world's authorities on canon law.
A lot of big subjects.
And she's instructed popes on canon law. The chairman of our board, Don Wallace, has for 44 years been the professor of international law at Georgetown University Law School, and is the head of some major United Nations organizations.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on.
Was he instrumental in the establishment of the organization? Or who was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
There were 5 of us.
You were one, and he was another.
Who were
a colleague,
involved in establishing the organization. We established it in Washington.
You have physical presence there? What's
we have
that
physical presence, and we're very fortunate because Don Wallace, who is the chairman of our board, is also the head. He's the directing head of a very prestigious place called the International Law Institute. And the International Law Institute has existed for decades. It's right in Georgetown. It was part of Georgetown University. Now it's separate, and it has a wonderful plant. And they have international legal courses for jurists, politicians, students from around the world. And luckily, we have that space to use.
Yeah. A physical space to have your presence in. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah. It's a heck of a town, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and it's right in the best part of Georgetown.
You've been living in New York for a long time. You
I've
like
been
living
in New York.
Do you count yourself Washingtonian or New Yorker still?
No. I come from the middle of Iowa.
But
I've been in New York I've been in New York since the early '60s.
I think you're a New Yorker.
Yeah, well, there are some New Yorkers who would say, if you haven't been born here,
Yeah, right. Well, that might have something to do with the politics of the area. Yeah. Because a lot of, if you were born here, a lot of those issues. Are there subject areas in the terms of the overall look at the Middle East? There's a lot of different issues that are involved. How do you break it down in terms of what you put your attention to?
Things that we think are important and we're interested in. I'll give you one other example of something we did shortly after we got started. Yeah. We worked on it for 2 years. First of all, we were very interested in Syria, and I've been interested in Syria for a long time.
I know you have, and Assad.
So in 2010, when Syria and the United States still had diplomatic relations, there was an embassy here, and I was a very good friend of the Syrian ambassador to the United States, Imad Mustafa, who was the best of the Arab ambassadors. Well, anyway, we, in our little group, we decided that we would like to do something to see if we could not better the relations between the United States government and Syria, which weren't very good. We worked on it for a long time. We worked in Congress, and we had it all arranged. I had arranged for the person who was the head of the Foreign Relations Committee of their People's Assembly, which is the equivalent to our Senate, come over for what we call parliamentary discussion with about 45 members of Congress. And we had the meeting all set.
That's a lot.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
It took a long time.
Yeah.
We had the meeting all set to begin, but then what happened? Then came March of 2011, and the revolt started, and so it broke apart. But I'm saying that was a major thing we tried to do, and we really had the setup accomplished. We had it planned. but then we couldn't do it because then the revolt broke out, war broke out, the United States and Syria broke diplomatic relations.
War is
But
such
we have kept in touch with Syria since.
Yeah.
Every week we have contact with people in Syria. One of our directors is a major Syrian scholar.
Right.
So we, unfortunately, since this war's been on since March of 2011, but we have lots of information. We've had programs on Syria. We have information that we refresh every single week.
It must be, it's like, I don't want to say, it's called a think, but also do tank.
It is a
like.
think tank.
Yeah.
It's a do. Thank you. It's a do tank, too.
Do what you
Thank
did
Yes.
before. There was a popular song.
We
Yeah.
certainly think so.
Yeah, that's good. Must be very satisfying to be in touch with the leading scholarship of the world. And that's
some
your
of the leading
oyster
scholars.
that you
Some
draw
of the
from.
leading scholars
Is
of
there
the
any
world.
particular political bias or whatever academic meme or something that you ascribe to as a group, or
Well,
do you cover the lot, or
have
how
a-
do you
no,
decide what to focus
We
on?
have a mission. And we've printed the mission.
Yeah.
The mission is educational.
Okay.
So since the mission is educational, we
Yeah.
want to deal with major issues,
Yeah.
and we want to try to present so that people can know as much as possible, so they can know about
the reality.
the substance, the reality.
Yeah.
And let's say here's an issue. If it's a major issue, there are by definition will be more than one side to the issue and to the argument. So we will try to present as fairly as we can different sides. That's one approach. We have something that's a little different than that. We have another approach. Let's talk about Islam, which we're really working on now.
Yeah, you got a big
With Islam,
both those conferences
That's
in
right.
Spain and Morocco.
Since we think that just as with other religions as well, there has to be some reform within Islam, some move forward. Well, we have dedicated ourselves to working on these conferences where we bring major Islamic thinkers who are advocating certain kinds of advances and changes.
Are there people that advocate change within Islam and people who advocate orthodoxy, as there are in other religions, or
Yes, there
political
are.
takes on anything?
There are, and so at these conferences we have discussions, and of course we have people who disagree with one another. We try to have the disagreement at our programs. We try.
Do you have
to it be as
referees like
cordial-
in a boxing
Well, we try
match?
to have
No,
it be
yeah,
as
yeah.
cordial as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah.
But Harold, for example, you've known me a long time. you
forever,
know,
it seems.
So
Yeah.
you know that sometimes when I get involved in these discussions,
Yeah.
it's not the easiest thing to keep it terribly cordial. But we try our best.
Well, I'm not trying. Are you trying to say we haven't been cordial?
No,
No,
not you
no.
and I.
No, I thought we were very cordial. In fact, we were cordial.
Yeah, that's true, Carol.
Yeah.
So I'm saying
you
that's
met the
way-
dog.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
you know,
true.
Yeah,
That's
and
true.
we know each other from a long, long time.
know each other
Well,
for
it's
a
hard
long
to
time.
cover any subject like that. Congratulations on getting a thing like that. It must be satisfying to be in work that you've been very much involved in
Well,
an
I was a-
advanced way.
I was a
and
professor for.
you were a professor
for
at Connecticut. Yeah.
Yeah, I was for 50 to 60 years.
And you've been in this for quite a while, this
In what?
focus on Middle East.
Yeah,
you
well,
were-
I would say
you were-
most all my life, Harold.
Yeah, really.
And I'm 84 years young.
Yeah. God, right.
I'm older than you are, Harold.
I didn't think there was anybody older.
I always
than
like
me.
to say to you, Harold, I'm your senior. The reason I say that is...
Yes, sir. Yes,
wait,
sir. Yes, sir.
The chairman of our board of directors,
Yeah.
Don Wallace,
Yes.
is 2 weeks older than I am.
Oh, wow.
So he
Oh, well,
always
he's got
says,
priority.
So whenever we're together with other people, he always says, I'm Norton Senior.
Yeah, right. Right.
So since I have 2 years on you,
Yeah. All
I
right.
could, but I'm not. I could make the
no,
same
I
argument.
know. But as anyway, so what are the major issues you identify, and particularly this conference coming up? What are the dates of that, and what's going to be involved? How many people are going to be there? What's going to be the procedure?
We're going to
do
have
you
the
have
conference-
Do you have a menu of what you're going to talk about, panels and that sort of thing already?
We're setting the
and what are the
we have
dates?
the panels almost set up now.
Okay, what are some of the panels that you want to, just as an
Well, we're going
example?
to have one panel
Yeah.
where we're going to have one of the leading people in this field talk about the position of women in Islam and the
wow.
movement for.
Yeah.
So that's an important topic.
Yeah, sure is.
We're
yeah.
going to talk about. The topic is going to be Islam in the modern world.
Okay.
And we're going to have speakers who try to move forward
Yeah.
in that regard. And we're going to have a couple speakers who will talk about what they think have to be changes in Sharia, in Islamic law, and then there will be others who aren't going to be in full agreement with what they say.
That idea of Sharia, it's almost like they want to know. It's a thing to have like just understanding of the principles of the legal system, or guidance to it. What is Sharia? What is?
Well,
it's probably got a bad reputation
system,
among
but
many.
It's also,
make it straight. What does Sharia really refer to?
Well,
what are
it
they
refers
talking
to
about?
that way of life in a sense.
Right.
That whole way of life.
But it's like a way of life.
It's a religious emphasis that the Muslims have.
Now,
but Sharia is also law, so that you hear lots of.
It's part of the monotheistic world in terms of religion.
Islam is certainly a monotheistic religion.
Yeah, and so it's grouped with Christianity and Judaism.
Well, they talk about, as you know, they talk about Islam, Christianity, and Judaism as the Abrahamic religions. That's right. It's not a term that I necessarily personally like so much, but I don't have anything against it. But I mean, it goes. The idea is that Abraham was. The argument is Abraham was either the or one of the first monotheists, and so these are the three monotheistic religions.
That's what it seems to be. And is there share with us something? It's very common and it's very hard to know. What is the big deal? Is it true outside of just normal contractual, economic, materialistic interests and so forth of the dispute between the Saudi Arabia and Iran? And how does that help define the world you're talking about, the Islamic world?
All right. Well,
those two.
Let me
Sunni and Shia.
Briefly, let me briefly say that there are maybe two categories here to that dispute. One category is the difference that's talked about more these days between in Islam. Islam, like other religions, has different emphases, different kinds of.
Oh yeah,
all right.
Just like Christianity or Judaism. Yeah.
Let's say the two major emphases are Sunni, which is the majority emphasis, and Shia, which is the minority emphasis. They differ. They don't differ so very much, but they differ in some doctrinal ways, and that difference goes back to right after Muhammad, when there was a dispute over who would replace Muhammad as the leader.
Right.
Then it becomes even more complex, but there have been differences. That doesn't mean that Sunnis and Shias have always been at odds and conflict.
They seem
with
to be
one
at
another.
odds now.
They have not. Now many are, but they have not always at all. They've gotten together. Okay, that's one difference.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia is Sunni. Iran is the major Shia country in the world. Okay, now that's that difference. But the more important difference is those are two countries where the leadership of those two countries vie for leadership in the Arab world and in the Muslim world. So they more and more have become at loggerheads with one another.
What do they argue about? What is the basis of the differentiation between them? Why aren't they working in cohesion with each other? I mean,
why aren't a lot of people?
But I mean specifically there. Well, they had that terrible war between Iraq and
that
Iran.
was between Iraq.
Horrible.
That was between Iraq
hundreds
and
of
Iran.
thousands killed.
That was terrible.
Horrible.
That was between Iraq and Iran.
What's it all about?
That had to do with territory as well.
Okay.
But between Saudi Arabia, listen, these are governments that are vying to spread their power in the Arab world and in the Islamic world.
Right.
Now, some will argue even broader than that, but let's say that. And so that conflict has become more severe than before in the last 10 years.
Why?
Maybe in the last 5 or 6 years.
What's causing that? Would you say? It'd be
Because
many faceted, obviously.
it's economic.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
It's economic.
That's a good place to
It
begin.
also has to do with just the power struggles between them.
It goes on between
It
other
goes on
states as
between
well in the world,
power
other than
struggles.
Islam. Yeah,
The
it goes
power
on.
struggles.
We have power
And-
struggles here in the United States.
Yeah,
so
we
with the-
do. Fortunately,
yeah, right.
we aren't. They aren't that severe. It also has to do with, unfortunately, this is my opinion.
Yeah, right.
It has to do with the people most of the people who have been in leadership roles in those two countries,
Yeah.
which have not been, as far as I'm concerned, the most positively oriented towards better relations with all your neighbors.
Including
not
the Western powers that they've had to deal
yeah,
with.
but right now we're talking about just in terms of these people in terms
Do
of
they
leaders.
hearken back to the Andalusia where they had a what do you call it, an empire that stretched all the way into Spain and so
Well,
on? They had a
maybe, but-
glory time in the past that they
Yeah,
can
but
refer
let me
to.
tell you.
Or is that overdone, or
let
what?
me. It is overdone. Let me give you what I think is one of the most important, maybe the most important current examples.
Yeah.
Current being an example from the last 6 to 7 years.
Okay.
Now, I said before that the civil war in Syria started in 2011. It started in March of 2011.
Yeah.
Now, first it was a revolt by some Syrians, and it started out as a peaceful revolt against the
Assad?
Bashar Assad government, because Bashar Assad, following his father, came in 2001. He promised lots of reforms, and many of the people didn't think correctly that they got enough of them. They started the revolt.
Was he unique, his father, in terms of his
Well, his
understanding
father
of
was for
Islam?
25
It
years.
wasn't like in Jordan or in
No,
Egypt.
because
there was
they
a difference.
kept control, and then there are some other differences. But now look,
Okay.
so then
Okay.
what happened was, unfortunately, there were, within Syria, as there are in other countries, there were some people who were really far more extreme, but they had been underground because they couldn't do much before, and they wanted to set up what they called an Islamic state, fully and totally.
That's
Syria
ISIS.
was not. That's right.
Yeah.
And they came up then, and they started in the fight.
Did they
So that created another front. Then what happened was the United States had gone into Iraq, and we had largely destabilized Iraq. So then we had negative forces that were underground in Iraq. They came out, and they came into Syria.
Yeah.
Now I could go on and on.
Yeah, I know.
The conflict grew.
I think that
when the conflict grew.
Yeah, right. Now,
Saudi Arabia always had designs. They never liked the Syrian government. They were always opposed to the Assads. They wanted to take over as much control as they could. Iran, on the other hand, right next to Syria, they didn't want the Saudis to come in. So what we got was Syria became a major fight between Saudi Arabia and Iran on top of all the other difficulties. So that was a tremendous addition, and that's still an addition. And in the meantime, we have a group like ISIS. There are others like them. They came up, ISIS, same group. They came up.
You say the same.
Same group. They came up, and here this shows how complex it is.
Yeah.
They're an extremist terrorist group within Islam, a minority within Islam. They want to establish their kind of Islamic state.
Do they have state power anywhere?
No. Well, they set up their own little caliphate that we're now fighting.
And they talk about the caliphate to Andalusia.
Okay, but the point
golden
is,
time in the past.
Here's the point. Saudi Arabia, they are Sunnis even though they're extremists. The Shias are terribly opposed, so Iran comes in and backs the Assad government fighting ISIS, which is trying to topple Assad. Saudi Arabia is fighting the Assad government, so presumably they would be fighting ISIS too, but no, what's happened is the theology of ISIS has come from the religious schools of Saudi Arabia that for all the
Madrasas,
years, since the 1930s, those schools have been in
all
cahoots.
over the place.
They have unified with the Saud family that rules Saudi Arabia. So on the one hand, the Saudis are fighting ISIS. On the other hand, the schools they protect have provided not only the theology, but lots of the financial economic help for ISIS. So all of that shows you how complex this struggle has become.
And what about, it seems to me, one of the worst mistakes ever made by the United States of America was the invasion of Iraq.
Terrible mistake.
Terrible mistake.
Terrible.
And where does that fit into the overall mix? What's the attitude toward the West or to what you're trying to do? Yeah.
We destabilized Iraq.
Yeah.
Listen, Saddam Hussein was an assassin. He was a
tough guy. A lot of tough guys out there. Yeah.
He killed people who didn't agree with him. But you also have to say this, and I'm not an advocate for Saddam Hussein, how he was, but he had. And Iraq, it had its difficulties with the Kurds and some others, but it was a stable Iraq. And what really created a totally unstable Iraq, which is still unstable, with civil war going on there too, we came in. The United States came in. Supposedly to save the country and to make it, in our image, democratic.
Horrible.
Which was a stupid idea.
Horrible.
And anyway, not only stupid, but we made it far worse. And of course, there was a big concern with Iraqi oil. And so when we destabilized Iraq, then forces from Iraq that are our extreme negative forces, they grew up, and we then got the expansion of some of these groups like ISIS. Was Al-Qaeda before. Al-Qaeda still exists. So that all expanded, and the situation in Iraq, together with Syria, has destabilized almost all of the Middle East.
What's happened? You had Mossadegh, and then he was overthrown in 50 or something, and then you had the Shah, and then there was an overthrow of the Shah. That was a major revolutionary change and so forth. Was that a major change in the country of
major change because
Iran?
Then the religious took over.
The religious took over in Iran, and that's Shia. What's the difference again? They seem to be having a difference. And one of the things I hear is in Shia they have a belief in the 12th Imam, the coming of the leader of the world that will create the new caliphate all the way to there will come, much like the Neturah Carter in your Jewish community, who says, "Where's the Mashiach?" This is called giving way for the modern transformation in a way that is having a very large epistemological understanding of the development of the planet. Do those things mesh at all, or are they irrelevant?
Let me suggest to you that the theological differences that exist, they are not the significant differences in the present difficulties between Shias and Sunnis.
Not even at a popular level?
The only way, the only place that they are different is if you then look at the really extremist groups that want to set up a full and total Islamic state. And
all the way to Andalusia, where they had ruled.
Well, not only that, but listen, the real extreme view is, let me tell you a personal story that
by all means,
that gives you this view. Some years ago, I was part of a group of 6 people that went on a lecture tour to Pakistan.
Okay.
And what prompted the tour...
Pakistan, India is the most dangerous.
What prompted the tour, and we had in the group, we had 3 Christians, we had 7, and we had 3 Muslims, and Norton Mezvinsky was the Jew. That's what they called
somebody's got to
my group didn't, but we got the Pakistan. I was called the Jew.
He's our Jew.
Very
well.
well.
That's funny.
Anyway,
yeah, it's funny.
So we go, and the first place we started, this prompted it. We went to Lahore, and we were the guests in Lahore of this major Islamic leader who had a huge school, and for 3 days, we had in a big hotel, we had a conference in the morning and the afternoon. And, and the setup was he would give a lecture, and then this group, the visitors, we would comment on the lecture.
Right.
And they televised
scholarly,
it.
yeah.
They televised
Yeah.
it.
They did televise it to
They
the
televised
nation?
it. And he
Did they
spoke
make it
in
available to the world or no? Was it in English?
Yes,
It was
because
all in
he
English.
spoke in English.
Yeah.
And he was an evangelical type of speaker.
Yeah, but did all the
and
participants?
they told me that in Urdu, he even was more evangelical. I couldn't imagine more. But anyway,
Yeah,
look.
okay, yeah.
So the first day,
Yeah.
he talked about,
Evangelicals,
the first day, he talked about an Islamic State. And he said, here was the theory.
When was this one?
This was 10 years ago.
10 years
And he
ago.
said,
Yeah.
Islamic State?
Yeah.
He said, there is no real Islamic State now, but the first one is going to be Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Afghanistan?
Yes,
Yeah.
because he was right there.
Yeah.
And then it's going to spread. And it's going to take over the whole world.
Yeah.
That was the theory.
Right.
Because the whole world has to become an Islamic State.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah.
so this is the extreme. And so he's lecturing and lecturing. And so then, of course, when we had our discussion, every one of our group disagreed with him, but that was fine. We had a discussion. We come in the second morning.
Yeah.
The second morning, and I was in the discussion. He starts out the second morning of the lecture. He points to me, and he said, Norton, I really like you, but he said, I want you to know that soon, when we have our Islamic State, all the Jews, including you, will be killed.
Uh-huh.
So that's what he tells me. So then the head of our group,
You want to sign up, Norton?
the head of our group, Ibrahim Abu-Rabi, a wonderful man, who was one of our directors, one of my best friends.
Well, he was serious.
He was serious.
Yeah.
Ibrahim Abu-Rabi,
And
the head
people
of our
listened
group,
to him seriously?
the head of our
You'd
group
laugh.
who arranged this, stood up and said, what's the difference between you and Osama bin Laden?
Yeah.
And he came back and said, big difference. He said, Osama bin Laden
is
says,
supported by the West.
No. Human beings should do all the killing. He said, no, human beings shouldn't kill anybody. Allah is going to do it.
Oh, God.
Now, so what I'm telling you is that's my personal example of what an extremist view.
But what did you say?
What do you mean? What
do you?
Listen.
I want to hear your reprise.
All I told him before was he was very. I told him, of course, I didn't agree with an Islamic State, but I'll finish the story since I started.
Please do.
After 3 days,
very informative.
We went out to his school. And we had this in this huge auditorium. His whole school, they packed the auditorium, and they had each of us, to their credit, each of us on the group stood up and we gave a comment on what we thought about the conference. So when it came time for me, I was introduced as the Jew. That's how I was introduced. So wait a minute. So
this should be on the Comedy Channel.
So I started out by saying, well, I said we agreed on some things, but I told the girl, I said, as you would guess, of course I disagreed with this view and so on, and there was laughter.
Yes, I would have hoped so.
Wait a minute. And then I sat down, and I was sitting next to the top lieutenant of this leader, and he leaned over and he whispered. This made the whole trip for me. He whispered in my ear and he said, they never laugh in our groups, but they laugh for you. And I thought to myself, that was worth the whole trip.
Yeah, right.
So that's my
Where's
story.
Mel Brooks now that we need him?
That's my story.
Yeah,
But
that's a great story.
Extremism.
That's very informative. That's a very dangerous part of the world. That thing.
That's extremism.
They got a couple hundred atomic bombs, I think. I don't know how many they have.
They may have.
India has.
Yes,
India had blown up a bomb. I was with the Pakistani contingent here in New York when they've exploded their atomic bomb. They were elated. And that's a very dangerous part of the world, the Pakistan-India thing. And that goes extending it out.
Well, anyway,
so what is needed, Dr. Mezvinsky, medical man extraordinaire, what's the medicine for that part of the world from Andalusia to the borders of China?
First of all, unfortunately, I don't have the medicine.
You don't have a prescription?
No. Wait. But I suppose if you would ask, let me reshape it a little bit.
Please do.
And if you would ask me, look, given how bad many parts of the world are now, we're talking about the Middle East. Of course, we would talk about Africa. It would be as bad, if not worse. Look what's happening in the south part of Sudan with all of the hundreds of thousands of children that are starving.
It's a crime. It's a crime. Yeah.
So, with all the trouble in the world, if the question would be, can we or can you? If you're asking me, are you optimistic or pessimistic about the future? My answer would be, it's hard for me to be optimistic about the very, very near future of maybe a year or two. But I would say, yes, I'm still optimistic. I'm still optimistic
in the long term
that in the future, the better part of human beings generally will be able to win out, and I think that this thing being overall conflict consisting of major conflicts and killing of people and so on, can be overcome. I still would say that I am optimistic, and if I wasn't optimistic, then I wouldn't be involved in trying to do, not only what I, but what lots of other people are trying to do when we say, well, we want to make things better. My group in Washington now, the group I'm the president of, our mission is educational. We're trying to do it by the best kind of education we can think of. There are other things that can also be done that are being done. So I would say to you, maybe that in a broad sense is the medicine, and I am optimistic, and maybe it's because I almost have to be optimistic, or what's this life worth?
Pessimism is got a new meaning after this last 100 years or so, because the weapons apparently that are being juggled and being threatened and are being brandished.
They are weapons of mass destruction.
But they are weapons that, I don't know, maybe you got some insight into real geopolitical thinking and monitoring of information and so forth. We have about 62% or 65% of our budget goes into military in the United States of America.
And our president wants to make it more.
And the president, and I was going to say, what is it that makes you feel that way, given the recent history, which would include the election of Mr. Trump to the presidency of the United States of America in these times? Where is the source of the optimism about somehow the intellectual leadership being able to understand the prescription to get from the institutions that form history to a new one that is going to be able to include a comprehensive justice for all? Where do you find that coming? Or where do we go to get that sense of positive possibility that we're not just going to, as is possible now?
Two brief answers.
After 200,000 years we've been here.
Two brief answers in two sentences.
Yes, okay.
One answer is, leaders sometimes change. The second answer is, ideas sometimes change.
What ideas are there to make a breach? Do we have to make a break with history? Do we have to encompass history? The outdated institutions? Has there anything happened at an esoteric level beyond the normal perception of the historical pattern in which we are ensconced in the institutions and so forth? Or do we just argue about the deck chairs on the Titanic of what we've inherited out of history? Or is there something new needed in terms of the intellectual understanding of the capability of both destruction and of benefit to the whole of the society that may be available to us? The destruction has never been there where it's species lethal. Is there something obviously at the same level of significance in a positive vein that there's a possibility of having a condition that can allow for peace that the historical context has not done as we look at it back over time? And begin to try and think into the future. Is there a time of qualitative transformation? And where is the thinking that gets into that kind of systems thinking? I would like to know.
First of all, since I don't believe that we have a pattern of history. I don't think we have a pattern of history.
You are a historian.
That's right.
Yeah, right.
And plenty of historians.
There's a
don't
lot
believe-
of it, yeah.
There's a lot of history.
Yeah, right.
But whether there's a pattern or whether there's just a develop, I don't think there's a pattern. So
There's a pattern of evolution. Evolution has a pattern.
evolution may have a pattern.
Yeah.
But I don't think that history, which involve, I don't think history itself, which is overall, but put that aside. So I still think that ideas can change. I also have some hope.
Yeah.
I have some hope in advances that we can make in various fields, such as technological advances. Technological advances could be advances, if we're talking about weapons of mass destruction, that could make matters worse. Technological advances also could make things much, much better. They could. And so I go back to what I said before.
Is it modeled? Is it modeled accurately what those things mean? Is there some sort of there's never been enough for all. In order for some to live somewhat well, others had to live badly. That's been the pattern of the whole of human society, 10,000 generations since we emerged out of evolution. What's changed, if anything, at the level of capability, not the reality, that of the institutions we've inherited? Is there something magical or something external to our normal thinking that would make this time possible? Something in the capability that we have. We have ability to destroy. What do we have an equally significant existential capability to provide for everyone, which we've never done in the political history of the planet?
I would have to say to you, first of all, I don't know.
Okay,
but I would say, look, there are some people, there are plenty of people, still plenty, in this world, who are religious believers in God, and so they believe that somehow God, this will be provided by God.
I'm scared of what do you call them? The Christian fundamentalists. They're very worrying. Millennialists.
Not only Christian fundamentalists. There are plenty of Muslims and plenty of Jews who are believers, who believe God is good and God will take care of us.
Yeah,
I'm not advocating. I'm advocating.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily one of those believers. But I'm saying that, first of all, you want answers. Some people will give you that answer. They'll give it to you in far better than I can. They'll give it to you in far more detail from their belief.
Where? Who? Where? Who is this person? Mostly it's all arguing old thought and doctrinaire. Our system is right over the others. Look, who has got some sort of a vision out of the intellectual community? Or what would what would the research project be to try and get at the question of what is our collective positive capability? How has it changed? What is the trend of that? Nobody's doing it that I can see.
I said the religious have one answer.
God will do it or something. The evangelicals are really dangerous.
Not just evangelical. Well, wait, Harold. Religious. Yeah, that's an answer. Then there are other. I already said, look. We know that we have in this world in the last 100 years.
Okay, that's good. That's a beginning. That's a beginning.
In the last 25 years, and probably even the last 10 years, with advances in the negative technology that we talked about.
No doubt.
We have had great advances in technology that already has shown that it could be and is helpful. So I'm saying
it is what?
That has already shown that it could be helpful and that it is helpful.
The weapons are helpful?
No. Let me repeat it.
I thought you said the weapons.
On the one hand, we have developments that are negative. Those are the technological developments of weapons. That's the negative category. Now I'm talking about technological advancements in a positive category.
No, if I may, a qualitative difference over history is that the weapons that exist now are now species lethal.
Yes,
in their capability. That's
Harold,
a big.
We don't have any.
It's not the Gatling gun over the rifle.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, okay.
I'm saying that's the negative part. The positive part, which you ask about, the positive part are those advances that are not weapons. Those advances that are in various fields. such as medicine, that have indeed advanced in terms of being able to take care of certain diseases, if not fully, partially. So I'm saying that now if we move to the positive vein and say, what are the possibilities?
No, don't talk possibility. Talk about capabilities that exist. Material reality that exists.
Material reality.
Yeah.
I'll give you the example.
And
again.
come down to a measurement of that. Is there enough? Have we crossed a line where collectively there was never enough for everybody to be in a state of haveness, materialistically, in the history of the universe? Always, for one to be living well, somebody else had to be living badly. That's assumed in the way that the universe is set up. Is there something that obviates that we have enough to where we can take care of everybody in a way that we have not ever had that capability until right now?
Wait a minute. We already know.
And what is it, and how do you research and document it?
We already know that right now we have the capability in various places, at various times, in various ways, to expand greatly food production. We know that. It's been
That's
done.
one aspect of the overall pattern. That's one aspect of the overall pattern. I'm asking you. I'm not asking you about individual things. I'm asking you about a collective. The thing on the weapon side is not more machine guns and more dreadnoughts. It's atomic weapons that have a qualitative difference. The qualitative difference between there being a capability for everybody to be materialistically has never existed. It's always been serfs on a feudal estate or something like that. Has something happened collectively that is making it possible that everybody can become a have, rather than be who's going to be left behind and all of the geopolitical thinking, realpolitik and everything else.
There may be no end to our discussion of this issue.
Well, I think it's an important question.
It is an important question, but I'm trying to say to you, we've already shown some capability, and that capability can be expanded greatly. And so you say you don't want to talk about possibility.
No. Where is it systemically brought together in a systems way? Not special about education or about agriculture or that. Somewhere in a systems way where they're combining it all the same way we can do with our weapons thinking. What is there about that would be a qualitative transformation evolutionarily. If there is a thing where there's enough for all, when there hasn't been ever for Homo sapien enough for all. Do you understand? And it's not ever brought up as possible because they will say it's impossible. I'm sorry, but it isn't there.
Wait.
Or I can't find it. Fuller, a few people tried.
Two quick comments.
Okay.
What you're saying isn't there today doesn't mean it won't be there tomorrow. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to try, because this is where I think any of us, can do some good. I'd like to try to bring it back to where we were talking in the early part of this discussion about problems in this world and what can we do today about possibly taking care of some of those problems, which means instead of coming up with a plan to move to the full total success.
That's where we should be going.
But maybe the way you
that's the way we should be going in our thinking.
But maybe,
and not dismiss
but maybe the way you go there is not by thinking what kind of huge step that may be impossible to come up with.
We did it with weapons. We did it with weapons. We made that break with weapons, did we not? Is species lethal? That's the system's understanding of the collective. Why don't we do the same with the ability to provide for all of humanity within a collectivist whole? And get to a systems understanding.
We may have to move step by step.
Now, what? No, step by step. We're going to be doing that for 200,000 years, step by step up the evolutionary panel. But we're coming to a time of qualitative transformation.
Good. Then, Harold, look, fine. Then
where is it?
Fine. So let me do a turnabout.
Okay.
And let me say to you towards the end of this discussion.
We got 10 minutes.
Well, okay, good. So
you can fit a lot in.
Wait. I'm going to give you a good part of that 10 minutes.
Okay, good.
And I'm going to say, since you've asked me to come up with this big end solution that you want.
Yeah.
I'll turn it back to you and say, Harold, you've talked the problem. What is your suggestion?
I would think the world would be much better off, and particularly the academic world has been corrupted by specialization. You're going to get very specialized out. The educational process is all tied up with the labor theory of value. The reason to get educated is to get a certificate that's going to allow you to do something where you can make money, maybe get 2 bedrooms rather than 1. And the old materialistic gain is what motivates the whole thing. And they've divided up the intellectual community into specializations. And everything's specialized. And the more specialized you are, the more valuable you are. And you become specialized. And the only reason to get an education is to get some money. You have to get some money in a big house and materialistic values and so forth. There should be places. There have been some tries. Fuller was one, Buckminster Fuller. They did a thing seriously back in 65, 75, took up the idea. What does it mean to be a have? Seriously, what does it mean? What's the capability? Housing, and have a serious understanding of that. And can we come to a point where we've made a qualitative transformation between where there was not enough historically. 100 years ago, you couldn't even think about it. There wasn't anything.
Well, wait, for you say you pick one specialized field, housing, and you
said
no,
that was one example.
Okay.
I didn't mean one example. I didn't mean to do that. I just say that was the case.
Wait a minute. Wait. First of all, I don't agree with your view of what education is today fully anyway. I don't agree with that.
Well, I do. I think there should be places where there's systems thinking, not specialized thinking.
Systems thinking?
Yeah, systems thinking.
The answer is still, the question to you is systems thinking.
Yeah.
What kind of system thinking?
Well, you got to take into
about?
account the implications of all the extended consciousness of technological capability to manipulate the real environment.
That taken into consideration in terms of lots of different areas.
Yeah, lots of singleized, and you single everything out. What I'm saying is there should be a comprehensive look at what's the collective implication of it all. A comprehensive thinking about our role, as we've done with weaponry. We do it with weaponry. Why is it so easy to understand?
Weaponry
we can
is a
do something tomorrow.
Field.
We can do something tomorrow that will eliminate the entire Homo sapien enterprise in evolution.
That's a specific field.
No, but that's true. It can be documented.
Yes, but it's a specific
It can be documented.
field.
Can you document that we've got enough for all whenever we have had enough for all, except in zero-sum ways?
No, but I'm asking you, how are you going to do it?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It has to be done. It has to be brought up somewhere. Who's trying? The idea of systems understanding seems not to be given any credence in academia.
Systems understanding.
Yeah, right.
Is a vague, ambiguous term.
It is.
Well, so it's a vague, ambiguous term.
It's comprehensive thinking.
Well, comprehensive means comprehensive of everything that has to be included. And everything that has to be included are all of these different fields that you're already saying are specialized fields that we shouldn't be dealing with specifically.
No, I just say it's a way to divide and conquer the intellectual community by geopolitical people who are geared to the traditional pattern of thinking. For me to win, you have to lose.
Harold,
I win over you in the fighting and so forth that could
lead
to the destruction of the species.
That's your approach, and let's say that you and I, as good friends, aren't on the same ground here.
Well, maybe, but I don't think so. It's just a matter of how you get to it. You can't be. I mean, you don't get through to any one thing. It's not just politics, it's history, it's anthropology, it's science, it's geometry, it's all of these different things.
And you have to work in all of those fields.
Yeah, overarching. Yeah, that's a systems understanding. You don't get caught up in any one part of the equation. You have to start thinking the thing collectively. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Name me a person.
Well, I don't know. You got
Name me a person who has so much ability that they can start to deal
Not
with
a person, a species. People can emerge. Fuller tried. Isaac Asimov, some of our great thinkers have tried to think. Albert Einstein thought. Some people thought in a comprehensive way.
No, not in the kind of way you're talking about.
Well, I think so.
No.
Fuller did. Buckminster Fuller, he's worth referring to. He got fired for not knowing how to fill out the forms for bureaucracy in a specialized university curriculum.
He didn't come up
Where
with
do you fit in, Mr. Fuller?
He didn't come up with his plan, did he?
He did. He came up with 165, 75. It's a major thing that could be repaired to. Buckminster Fuller Institute's still going. They're trying to carry that on. There are people that are trying to carry on that idea.
Okay,
That's all. It's just a different way of seeing things. But anyway, I hope the conferences that you're doing, we started talking about that. We shouldn't have gotten off on all that because nobody understands that that's possible. But I think that's possible to get to that kind of thinking where you combine a lot of different things and think that way, not think about the specialization about housing and education and all the different things that we break things down to for convenience to the old paradigm.
All right, finally we're in disagreement on that because my thought is that we need to have in-depth thinking about specific things that will add to this. And if we broaden it out and say we're going to try to think of everything all together, that's almost like saying, let's think of how we can become a God that can do everything in this.
No, I think that's a cop-out. I don't think so. I think we might be introduced to another level of understanding in the universe, that we are part of a pattern in the universe and that we have a relationship. And if we get a world where it's elemental justice and the kind of things where the whole of the society is participating at a level where they don't have to be concerned with these things that can be taken care of materialistically, we might get to a world that'll bring us into a relationship transcendent to what we've been throughout the human experience. That's what we're not. This is not a normal time of history. This is a qualitative time of change. Qualitative, not quantitative change. That's all. So we ought to get some thinking that's revolving around that way of thinking rather than reifying the outdated institutions and thoughts.
I would say to you finally, that is an opinion about history in general. And
yes, you're a professor of history, right?
And how, well, that doesn't mean anything.
No.
And how history develops, that's a certain theory.
Yeah.
But that theory is not one that I think can be proven.
No, not proven. No. It's something to be achieved. And anyway, it's worth something because nobody's hardly doing it. Everybody's getting specialized and encouraged to be. And that's the way it goes. And that's unfortunate. I think that's going to lead to, I think we have to have some sort of way of bringing it all together. That's just a thought. Anyway, your pleasure. I didn't mean to get talking, but you did a lot of good talking too. And I think this conference you got going is great.
My experience over the years with Harold Channer is when you come on with Harold Channer, you'll probably have a chance to talk a little bit, but you'll have to squeeze it in there because Harold will also do some talking.
You got a word or two in as well, my friend, particularly there at the beginning.
Thank you.
And I'm glad you got that institute going down in Washington. It's a major one,
Harold,
and everyone should be aware of that.
Thank you for having me.
Your pleasure to have the perceptions of a major mind who's part of an institute, head of an institution that's really got good hope for coming up with good understanding about one part of the world that's really crucial to an understanding of what has to be done.
And maybe we'll be able to contribute to your huge theory.
Well, I would love it. I'd love it. Come aboard.
Let's end on that theme.
All right. Okay. All by all means. Thanks. Come back. We'll come back again tomorrow. Okay. Thanks again. Okay. Well, I think they just about got that in. Then. Okay.
Look what that got into, Harold. My God. Okay.
Well. Okay,
all right,
so
Harold,
that's another program, and
that it's 4001.
Or the year, yeah. Okay, well now let's get this. What do we do now? Wait a minute. Let me think. We got nothing to give you now.
Don't give me anything now, Harold.
No. Okay.
Give it to me when you've got it.
Okay. We're going to send you